Hello, and welcome to the Talented Amateurs Podcast. My name is Joe Randolph, your host, and today we have Chantelle Rodgers, who is Director of Music Matters in Rotterdam, based in the Netherlands. We will learn more about what she does with Music Matters, which gives young people in Rotterdam a boost in finding their own way in the world of music, education, and talent development. We will also hear how she is impacting sickle cell awareness in the Netherlands, which has an impact on the Black and Brown communities. We'll also dive into the work and impact she is driving across the community in Rotterdam and Amsterdam. So let's get started. Chantelle, how are you doing today? And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Sunday is always a nice day to relax and just read and reflect a little bit and look forward to this week. So I'm doing good.
Great. And I do appreciate you coming on today. I know that as we've had an opportunity to meet and talk, I really was impressed with a lot of the work that you're doing there in the community, some of the passion you have around sickle cell awareness. And so I wanted to bring and highlight some of that work and really bring um, some of your message to the forefront and just being able to share your story, because I think you have done some phenomenal work there across the community and just the way that you're involved. And so as we get started, we'll touch on a lot of those topics along the way. But just kicking off, let's maybe tell us about who is Chantelle and tell us a little more about your background, where you're from, and we'll start there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Chantelle Rodgers, 41 years old. I was born in Amsterdam. I grew up in Rotterdam, which is the second largest city in the Netherlands. My parents are originally from Suriname. That's a country next to Brazil, so South America. And I studied sociology. I did a bunch of things, and maybe we'll get into that today. And also, I was born with sickle cell anemia.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so maybe let's start with, so you're currently director of Music Matters, and tell us a little bit about what Music Matters is and what is your role and what do you do as director?
Yeah. Music Matters is an organization that's been around for, I think, 14 years now in Rotterdam, and we develop programs around music education and talent development. Um, and I started working there January 2019. And yeah, like you said, I work as a director, which mainly means that I'm responsible for this strategy and for making sure uh, that every kid in Rotterdam gets the opportunity to develop their talent in music.
Awesome. And so with that talent in music, what are some of the, I'm always interested in how different music and just how the talent is cultivated in different regions, different countries. Tell us more about that work and what does the talent development process look like there in Rotterdam and with Music Matters?
Yeah, so um, over here you get music, you get into if it goes the right way, you get introduced to music at a young age in elementary school. Um, but that's just a touch of it. Like you don't really get a lot of music education. I don't know how it is over there, but over here the focus is a lot on math and all the other non-creative courses. Um, so um, we have a lot of music schools um, in the neighborhoods and everything. And what we see is that not every child comes from a background or a family where they get introduced to music. So where it's natural that they go to a music school. So what we're trying to do is make the music education within the schools more inclusive, because we have a very diverse population here in Rotterdam. We have more than 170 nationalities living here. So people from Morocco, people from Cape Verde, people from Suriname, people from Curacao, all these different countries living here. And we don't see that we don't see that in the education programs. So what we're trying to do is make sure that children, you can't be what you can't see. So what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody recognize themselves in those programs and get introduced to the programs that we have after school, and make sure that if they have a talent that they get get directed to the, I don't know how you say, conservatorium. So what's the high education uh, name for music schools? I
Right,
don't
like
know.
in the university school, sometimes there may be arts, maybe school of the arts, or and they focus on different elements. So that's similar to some of the programs that you may see here in the U.S. If they don't study directly in a university, they may go to a performing arts school where they can also foster some of that creative talent. Where it could be dance, it could be music, and some of those creative elements within the U.S. So it's similar to, sounds like that's what it's similar to as well.
Okay. Well, exactly that then. So we're trying to get that path more smoother and make sure that people who can't afford it or can't afford it for their children can get know the way to financial aid, because there is a lot possible when it comes to financial aid for creative projects, also for sports. So we're trying to direct them to that. And yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do.
Got you. Now, music matters. It serves as a tool to help stimulate aspects such as cooperation, respect, and understanding each other in emotional and social development of children. And so, as it plays a role in helping them understand or use music to express themselves and identify others, talk to us more about that component that music matter does have a focus in terms of creating some of these emotional and social development opportunities in children.
Yeah, what we believe in is that not every child is going to be not everybody is going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher. Like there's also the next violinist,
Yeah.
and there's also I don't know, I see a poster here in my living room of Questlove. There's also the next drummer, there's also the next Timbaland. And if you don't touch them with that, they're never gonna develop that talent, or they're never gonna experience that talent that's already within them. So that's what we focus on, and we think, and not even we, I mean, research has shown that music, not only music, but also, let's say, theater, other creative, other parts that touch your creativity, um, do a lot when it comes to the development of other fields, like math, or like other other skills that you need in life.
So, no, and I think that is great. I actually took a couple of dance classes when I was in college, and it does help cultivate other parts of your life. Now, I didn't turn into a dancer, obviously, but it did help me in other elements in terms of my athletics, but then also the discipline helped me apply that to different other areas of my life. And I'm curious, with students and with young people, what have you seen as some of the common trends or threads that usually come up for them as they're going through trying to develop their craft as musicians, and how do you help them overcome those? Because there's always self-doubt, there's always obstacles. How do you teach and help them get through that and be resilient?
Um, what we do is we work a lot with professional musicians, so role models that already been through that road. So a lot of the teachers and the mentors that we use in our program are people who already and who are still musicians, who already been through a lot of things. So they co-develop with us, they co-create with us. So by doing that, we hope that we can prevent them from making the same mistakes. And those mistakes can be a variety of things, like the simple things, how to handle a writer block, to how to get my next project funded, to how am I going to stay relevant in this digital time where everybody's just creating, 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 and you have so much choice. How am I going to like make sure that I stand out? So all those things we help them with by co-creating with artists.
Got it. And you mentioned some of that digital element. Today, people can make music, and you almost eliminate the middle AR component or the account rep who normally would help build an album, charge you. But now you can put out music without having a lot of investment financially. How are you developing and well, how are you adjusting to the digital element? Because I think you touched on that. Would love to hear more about how you are adjusting the way that you provide and work with talent around this digital movement.
Um, yeah, I mean, it has both. It has two sides. So yes, there's a lot. You uh, definitely it kind of um, uh, even leveled the playing field. Um, but you also see that it's that because there's so much, it's very hard to stand out and to make sure that your track um, uh, winds up in the Spotify playlists, or just to mention one thing, or to make sure that you get signed or that you stand out. And I think we still need those professionals. You mentioned an A&R, business manager, talent manager. I think you still need that team um, around you to um, to get your feedback, to make sure your demo is everywhere, to make sure that you get a great deal, or to make sure that um, you can further develop and make the choices that are good for your career. So I wouldn't say you don't need all those people anymore. Um, but also when it comes to ERs, you get seen easier. You get seen easier.
Right.
You get noticed easier.
Got you. So you're saying there's still a balance that you still need that person that can go out on behalf and get you in rooms that you may not be able to get in yourself, or get you in front of the right audience so that your music can be heard. It's one thing to put it out yourself, but then you still need that person that understands the networking, um, the connections to propel you to the top of the list. Okay, awesome.
Especially if you're not signed with a major label.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Why music matters? You've done a lot there in Rotterdam. So what drew you to Music Matters? Where you probably could have done anything. You're a talented lady. You could have done anything in Rotterdam. What drew you to Music Matters?
Um, First of all, I love music. I love music. I get up with music. I go to bed with music. But the years before that, I was a consultant um, for local governments, and as well as, do you say ministries?
Ministers or elected officials, depending
Yeah,
on the role. Yeah.
yeah. So I did that for 10 years on education, safety, and health. Um, and I saw this. I wasn't even looking for anything. I was at a great consultancy company, and I was doing great. And I saw this. I don't know. I don't even know how where I saw it, but I saw the job online, and I was like, oh my god, this is for me. This one is for me. It just called me, and yeah, I just applied, and here I am. And I used to work throughout the country. Now I work in my own city, so that also like even gives me a better feeling to like I'm really contributing to the youth over here. So yeah, I still love it every day.
Wow, that's great. And before we transition, you so music in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. I had a chance to attend the Lauryn Hill concert in Amsterdam, and I was just really amazed about just the excitement and the enthusiasm at that concert. And it was electric. It was a lot of energy. Talk to me about the trends in music in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, and in Amsterdam, and how and what are some of the changing factors there that's happening? Because I wasn't sure how much people will be into hip hop, or even Lauryn Hill for that matter, because she hasn't been particularly on the scene. She started to start doing concerts in the U.S. and then started to expand out. But talk to us about the music scene there, and what are some of the trends and the growing trends that's happening over there in the Netherlands?
Well, it's super, like I said, we have a very diverse population here. Um, so we have all these cultures, like a lot of people from Ghana, a lot of people from Nigeria, a lot of people from Suriname, from Cape Verde, uh, Turkey, and Morocco. So that means that the music scene is very diverse. So you can really pick and choose which experience you want to have. We also listen to a lot of American music, so we grew up on that. We grew up on Notorious B.I.G. or as far as I'm 41 now, so we grew up on hip hop, and we used to like also check MTV Raps and everything, and read the vibe, or like we always been looking at y'all.
Gotcha.
What you see now more than ever, I think, especially um, especially with developments like Spotify, is that the Dutch hip hop scene is enormous. Like if you look at the streams on annual base, that's the genre that's being listened to the most over here. So that's good. That's good. Um, well, as far as the scene, um, like I already said, there's a lot. There's a lot of music festivals, international music festival that um, attract a lot of people from outside, from England, from America, like North Sea Jazz Festival. We have that every year. We didn't have that this year because of COVID. So yeah, it's a very vibrant scene over here.
Okay. Yeah, I actually really had a great time, even though I missed part of the concert because a few meetings at work were delayed, and I ended up leaving Ireland, and my flight was
Mm,
got in late, and then trying to get from the airport. So, very good. So, thank you for that. Really love some of the passion that you have as it relates to music and some of the things you're doing there in the community with young people in regards to helping them cultivate their talent. So, really looking forward to your continued impact in this space and with Music Matters. So maybe let's shift and let's talk a little bit more about some of the work you're doing with sickle cell. You're with IXL, which is a nonprofit or organization that focuses on sickle cell. Can you tell us more about what IXL is, their mission, and what they do, and then we'll talk more into about your role in what you're playing there.
okay, yeah. Um, like I said, I was born with sickle cell myself years ago, and sickle cell put me through a lot. Um, and it was actually when I was maybe when I was in college that I started taking more control uh, of that process, and I'd be I don't want to say victim because that's weird, but not be like totally um, dependent on whatever my disease was going to do that day. So I started taking more charge of that, and always like at the beginning of the school year, went to my mentor and I was like, "Yo, I have this disease, sickle cell, which means this is this," and so maybe I'm gonna get admitted at time. Maybe I need some time extra with exams or whatever I needed at that point. How are we gonna make sure that I walk out of this school with a diploma in 4 years? What are you gonna do? What am I gonna do? So by starting that conversation, initiating that conversation, I really saw the effect that it had on my school results and the outcome. And before that, I did a couple of years. I had to redo them. So I was like, okay, if this works for me, then maybe it can also work for other people. So that's when I started thinking about this foundation. I had been doing um, work, volunteer work for the patient organization back then. I was doing that for 10 years then. Uh, but I needed something more, something that's more focused on excelling. The organizations I excel, that you can excel, that you can be whatever you want, even if you have that disease. So that's why when I founded that organization 5 years ago. And what we do, we basically believe in, um, we basically operate from the belief that even if you have a disease, you can still be whatever you want to be, whoever you want to be, and excel, like I just said. Um, but also, the more people, so that's the awareness part, the more people that know of sickle cell, the easier the lives of the people with sickle cell will be when they go to work, when they go to school, when they all had relationships, everything. So we operate from that, and so we do campaigns, and we also um, do projects that better the position of sickle cell patients on social and economic field.
So, and maybe let's maybe take a step back because in some regards, a lot of people may not know what sickle cell is, and maybe tell us a little bit more about what is sickle cell and why is this a such a has such an impact on a person and their life. Can you maybe share a little bit about more about what sickle cell is?
Yeah, so sickle cell is a disease that affects the form of the red blood cell. So a normal red blood cell is round, and the red blood cell transports oxygen to the organs and everywhere. So with sickle cell, it has the form of a sickle, which we know, like this instrument. Um, so when it gets that shape, um, it clutters in the veins, and when that happens, the bones don't get enough. The bones and the tissue don't get enough oxygen, and it hurts. So that's what we know as a sickle cell crisis. It's the intense pain that you see sometimes in movies or pictures. Like, so that's what sickle cell is mainly known of. But it also, over the years, it can also, you can also get organ damage as a patient. So, and that's not a problem if it's the non-vital organs, but if it's the vital organs like the heart, the kidneys, the spleen, then it could be a problem.
With sickle cell, what are or as you've done this work and obviously suffering or have this disease as well, what are you seeing as now some of the important developments in sickle cell awareness and how it's being treated? Have you anything that you can share around some of the advancements around the disease and how people are now able to treat it? I remember having a classmate in college that suffered from sickle cell, and we used to have to help and support when they were having crises and making sure that they, to your point, could still get through their coursework. What are you seeing as some of the advancements that, as we learn more, know more about this disease, that's helping better treat it for patients or for people that suffer from this disease?
Yeah. So back in the 80s when I was young, there really wasn't much they could do or did for you, like besides the morphine, the pain medication and fluid or infusion, so that the blood cells will flow again. But what we see right now is that there are more the doctors have a more standard procedure now that you when you come in, like they like is for instance in my hospital, they and in all the sickle cell center, we have 6 sickle cell center here in the Netherlands, centers here in the Netherlands. So what we see is like when you come in the ER, they want you like at least on an acceptable pain level in 30 minutes. If that doesn't, if nothing helps, or within an hour, you get admitted. Um, the admission pretty much goes the same as it used to go. So fluid and pain. That's all you can do at that point. But also they have more standard checkups. So every 2 years, my eyes get checked, my lungs get checked, my heart get checked, so that they can see the if you're developing organ damage or not, and so that they can intervene if you do. So that's what we see not only here but also in the US, in England, and most of the Western countries also. What we have, what's been a great development over the years is the transplantation options. So for sickle cell, that's the only way to get cured right now, through a stem cell or bone marrow transplantation. And they do that now more often, and also not with a fully identical match. So it can also be another family member, or also somebody from the donor lab.
Does that help reduce, or does it doesn't eliminate the disease, but does it when if you get some of the transplants, or does it just help reduce some of the pain or the amount of crises that you have? And I'm not sure if there's a threshold, but how does that factor into the disease? Does it eliminate it? Does it help you just consume or absorb, or at least manage the disease in a much more effective way? How does that stem cell research? Uh,
It eliminates it, so you
it
get
does.
cured
Okay.
from sickle cell
Okay.
because it's on stem cell level, and that's so the normal blood cells your body will make after that will be normal blood cells and not sickle cells.
Okay. And with sickle cell, do you? Because sometimes you start. Typically, I've seen where it's more having a more of impact in the Black and Brown communities. Maybe share more about why it seems to hit those communities in a higher percentage in some cases, or is it pretty balanced across when you look at nationalities and race? Do you see it balanced? But I typically see it more in Black and Brown communities. Can you share more about what some of that research and some of the studies you've seen there?
Yeah, it is a disease which mainly affects people of color, and primarily Black people, but also other communities of color, because it's originated from areas that had malaria or still have malaria. So it's research says that it's a natural way to it was a natural way for the body to protect against malaria. So back then a lot of people died from malaria, so the body's going to look for a solution. Sickle cell is that solution. So carriers, the people who have the sickle cell trait, cannot get malaria. So what you got back then is that people who had the trait who didn't die of malaria, they met each other, they had children, and those children had the full-blown sickle cell disease because it's a disease that you inherit from your parents. They have the trait, or in my case, they have the trait, so they don't really have the complaints. They don't have them at all. But I got the disease. Um, so with that history, it being in malaria areas, we see sickle cell in um, Turkey. We see sickle cell a lot in Africa, like countries like Ghana, Nigeria, the US. So, and also countries that have a history. Already people originally were from Africa, like Suriname, that's South America, but we come from Africa. So,
Okay. What
and
and it's
India is also, sorry,
India. Oh,
India, yeah.
okay. No, that's interesting, and I think and I thank you for that awareness, because I think for us, it's really about how do we get more involved in really helping understand what we can impact across this disease, because sometimes you may not know a person has it, because when they go through a crisis, you probably won't be around, or you're not going to know. And I think the more awareness that we can continue to educate in our communities, it will help us being able, to your point, support this disease. And then also, as people are in school or as they're working, it'll help us be better advocates and allies in this space to be able to really help support these individuals. And I think that that is key. What do you see? What do you see? What would you like to see, or what do you see as your continued role in fostering sickle cell awareness, and what would you like to see in the future as you continue to have an impact in this space?
Um, I think get diseases and sickle cell and other diseases out of the is a taboo sphere. So that is it's normal. 1 out of 10 people has something or is not completely healthy, and uh, that it's normal um, to have something and to still participate in life, and that you don't have to be ashamed of it, like or be afraid how the other is going to respond or treat you or hire you or whatever field you're operating in. So that's one. Um, more research and more funding. Um, it's also very important. We still see that sickle cell is very much underfunded. So if we compare it to other diseases that are like about the same um, amount of patients, but mainly white patients, then we see like when it comes to cystic fibrosis, American research has shown that um, if you look at the funding that goes to that disease in comparison to sickle cell, that there's 11 times more funding going to that disease, which are about this about the same amount of about the same amount of patients. We're also letting that research do. We're also doing that research now over here to see if that's about the same. So get it funded, and I would also love to see um, more international collaboration in that field.
Okay. That's, and I think that's something that I think is very realistic, and obviously, and I was wondering, when you start to look at the the funding and how funding is allocated across diseases that are similar, how does that play out from a demographic perspective, right? And I think, obviously, as we see more of this impacting in our community from a Black and Brown community perspective, I think it's important for us to really understand how we can have a much more broader and wider impact to this. And I know, as you look at the space, we talk about hip hop. One of the members of Mob Deep had sickle cell, and I think you had some of a relationship. Maybe talk to us more about that, and how, as we get more awareness, how that helps shape some of your thinking and impact in terms of sickle cell awareness. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about just kind of that relationship, and not necessarily anything detail wise, but just more so just how, when we have people that we know, celebrities or artists that have this, how that can help continue to bring light to the situation, and how we can create more advocacy, or that people can relate to, that they can maybe see themselves and like, okay, this puts a face on it. So can you maybe share more about what that experience was like, and anything that you were able to see where we can continue to drive awareness here?
Yeah, yeah. So Prodigy, you're talking about Prodigy of Mob Deep. He was the main act in 2015 of a music festival. Like I said, we got a lot of nice festivals here. So he was the main. he was the main act of a festival, and I was like, wouldn't it be great if some of the youth, some of the patients we are working um, with sickle cell who also operate on the creative field would get a chance to meet him and talk to him. So I emailed his, I thought it was his management, but it was his publisher. I emailed her and she got back to me. Yeah, sure, why not? Um, so we met him. I think I went with four young people with sickle cell, and he just talked to them for, I think it was 2 or maybe 3 hours, and how he experienced sickle cell, and how he combined, or how he had this great musical career, and um, also with this disease, and how he kept everything in balance, and he gave them tips. He was very conscious of what he was eating. I also believe that food and the diet and exercise uh, do a lot have do a lot for people with sickle cell. So we also taught him about that, and he just taught him a lot of things. And after that, I sent the pictures. Nothing really special. I sent the pictures to the publisher. It was nice. Some of the youngsters were did some radio interviews after that, how they experienced it, and that was that. But then the next year, he was back in the Netherlands, and he texted me. I was like, "Yo, I'm in Amsterdam. Maybe we can have breakfast, or maybe we can, meet up." And that was really the beginning of our friendship. And yeah, we were friends. We talked a lot of the things that I went through back then. We already went through. Um, so I had some eye damage after a flight, and then again after another flight, and I already had that. So he taught me how to handle that, and how to, like, and not to worry that I will, that blurriness will go away at one point. You just have to have patience. And so so we talked a lot, just not just about sickle cell, but also about the Black community, and about how um, we can find each other more and better. You also asked what people, celebrities, people that we know can do for sickle cell. Of course, it helps when, a celebrity speaks out, or speaks, or has a disease, and is not afraid to talk about it. So I think T-Bus of TLC is also, and has been doing amazing work. She goes live about the subject a lot. She writes about it in her book, and um, and also the I think it also helps for the not only for the funding and for the role models, and to see that you're not alone, but also uh, for the rest of the people to see that just because you have sickle cell, that doesn't mean like that you can be a great artist or a great professional, or that.
Awesome. And I think it's great to hear those stories, because I think it ultimately, to your point, it gives a face to it, but it also helps it relatable, where you know that this person can reach this level of success and still manage this disease. And I think it also will help bring more awareness in terms of the funding opportunities. But then you mentioned just bringing this community together so they can share experiences, and as one person maybe go through one situation, the other person may go through something else. It helps you guys, helps this community continue to learn and help each other out, support each other, which is half the battle. And I think being able to just have a support system in place. So I wanted to just kind of hear that story, and
Yeah,
I think it's tremendous. Go ahead.
yeah, but we need more than that. So
Okay.
yeah, there are a few celebrities who have sickle cell, but like it's a black disease, and what we really need is for the, especially now with everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter, but also we uniting more. Black people really uniting also over here. So like with the Black Lives Matter protest over here in Rotterdam, there were more than 10,000 people. For us, that's a lot. Um, um, so we really need to like black professionals, black organizations, the black community to um, work with us to get that disease better funded, to get better opportunities. Like, and we use. I mean, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen anymore, but I feel like there was more ownership. There used to be more ownership of the black community towards that disease. Like if you look at the Black Panthers and how they really had sickle cell programs and everything. I think we need that more.
No, I definitely agree. So we can definitely, and maybe tell us, as we think about how we can advocate more support for this community, are there certain, is there certain places we can go to find out more about the disease? Obviously, we can go to IXL, but are there other resources or other um, pieces of information that you can direct us to that we can just continue to educate ourselves on not only just the disease, but how we can better support it?
I think Sickle Cell 101 is doing an amazing job over there. Sickle Cell 101.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they give information, a lot of information, and that's what the name also says. And Six Cells. Six Cells is an organization also in America that also does a lot to get it on the political agenda. They were at the White House right before the elections, I think, maybe in August. They were there to talk about how to better uh, about the needs of sickle cell patients. So I think there's a lot going on, but we need your all support. And those are the two organizations that I work with every now and then, and but that I'll look up to.
Got it. Okay. No, thank you for that, and thanks for sharing. And hopefully, as people hear and listen in, that they can do a little bit more research into those organizations as well as IXL, because I think the more we can educate ourselves on this disease, the more we can support it from within our community, the better we can continue to bring um, more awareness in this to light, so that we can just continue to support it ongoing. So thank you for sharing your story, but and also sharing some of the things that we can continue to do to support sickle cell and just the disease that does have an impact on our community. So thank you. You're also, and maybe just shifting to maybe some additional things that you're doing there in Rotterdam and Amsterdam. You've been involved in a variety of organizations. Can you share just a little bit more about some of the things that you are also focused on and as you're driving and supporting and impacting the community in that area? Anything else that you're working on or anything that you're involved in?
Um, I'm on a couple of um, supervisory boards. One of a school, and the other one of a childcare organization in The Hague. I'm also artist manager of uh, a hip hop artist here in the Netherlands. So that's keeps me busy. But especially for the boards, the supervisory boards that are participating in, it's more than those two. But I think it's very important that we uh, get on those positions more, and that we, even if it takes a lot of time, that we are better represented when it comes to boards and that field, just to make sure that um, to look after all our goals and best interest.
Okay. And you said you're managing. Let me not slip that one. Let that one go by. You're managing a hip hop artist in a group. Okay. Tell us more about that.
Hip hop
I didn't.
artists.
A hip hop artist. Okay. What can you name the group, or tell us more about that? I didn't realize you were also an artist manager. Maybe we can talk about my singing career. So
Oh, really?
I'm just playing. No, I don't. Just kidding.
Yeah, almost for 2 years now. Right after I started working at, I mean, we've known each other for more than 10 years. But there were a lot of, like, what you see nowadays in music industry is that brand partnerships are getting more and more normal, and we see that more often now. So what happened back then is that a very large brand asked him to collaborate with him, and a fund also contacted him saying that they would like him to apply for something. And like, especially in hip hop, those were two things that he didn't really do before that. So not like with their brand, not really long term. Um, of course, you have those short brand partnerships, but like that's is more branded content, but long partnership, not that much. And also with the whole funding world, he didn't really know that back then neither. So we were talking about that. He was like, I had some insights, and he was like, yeah, let's talk again when you have time. And I was like, okay, tomorrow maybe. So we ended up really doing those two things, like making a great proposal for their brand, and also um, get the funding for his next project. And during the process, he was like, how do you see your role within my career? What role do you see for yourself in this whole thing? And would you like to do a proposal? And I was like, really? Okay. So I started thinking about what what can I do from the experience that I have? Where can I add? What do I still have to learn? And I made a proposal, and I started doing his management, which is basically I'm responsible for brand partnerships, um, for part of the funding of projects, and also for the strategy of a label, because he's also a label owner, and he has not a lot, but some 5 artists now, 5 or 6.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, you slid that one in. I was like, let me. I wasn't gonna. I couldn't let you just slide that in and not follow back up on it, because that's something new that I haven't heard you mention or knew that you were doing. So, um, like I said, you're just dope. You're doing all kinds of things there in the Rotterdam Amsterdam community. So thank you for sharing that. So looking forward to seeing how you begin this budding artist management career. So when you start getting, let me know when the next festival start up in Amsterdam, so I can try to take a trip over. Um,
Sure.
very good. So as we come to close, a few things maybe before we close out. As we approach 2021, and we don't know how it's going to look just yet with COVID, but what are some of the things that you have on your radar? Any big bets or any big projects or initiatives that you're driving into next year? Can you share, some of those things you have lined up going into the new year?
Yeah, I can. As far as we were talking about music, as far as music, for Music Matters, I would love to dive into how to or maybe develop a program together with the university that's focused on longevity of musicians. So, like, if you look at Harvard, they have this program now. I think it's a recent program where they focus on longevity of um, athletes. And they also have a special MBA program, but they also have an athlete. I would love something like that for musicians, because they make a lot of money in a very short time, but you can't be a musician forever. So what's your plan after that? So I would love to do something with the university, maybe some kind of program that will contribute to that. Um, as far as sickle cell, I really, really, really this year, my focus or upcoming year to 2021, I really want to focus on getting it funded on European level. So I hope our research that we're doing right now to see how it's funded in comparison to cystic fibrosis, that it will help to making that more visible, how it is here in the Netherlands, and maybe get it on the agenda even better. Um, and I would also love to see how we can um, get it on the agenda more international with organizations like Six Cells and Sickle Cell 101, and maybe even organizations in Nigeria, uh, which is a country very much affected by sickle cell.
Wow, looking forward to that. That's pretty awesome. That those are some of the things you have, and definitely will looking forward to just some as you continue to drive that going into next year. As we close out, I try to leave the audience three things before we go, and if they don't take anything from today's conversation other than these three things, what would you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up today?
Mm, well, taking it back to my organization, I already said that a couple of times, but I really think it's super important that if you're born with anything that society doesn't see as normal, like a disease, or that you can still become anything you want to, uh, and make sure the system doesn't tell you otherwise. Second would be, I think the time for, I'm also part activist, but you know that, right? I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah. I would love for Black communities, or Black and Brown communities, as you say, to collaborate more. So now that we got all the Black Lives Matter protests in London, in Berlin, in Paris, in Rotterdam, in Amsterdam, in all the places in the States, um, what are we gonna do now? Don't forget Africa and South America. What are we gonna do now? So what's our next plan? Um, we already see that there's a trend of supporting Black-owned businesses and like unifying more within our countries, within our communities. But I think we can also, the next step would be, and I think it will be now, to also do that on an international level. So get together, especially now with COVID, everybody's working online, everybody's doing things from a distance. So that should even make it more easier. And the third thing, 2021 is coming. And as we saw this year, everything can happen. So the things you planned, um, it can go get away. So maybe I'm gonna get sickle cell on the international agenda, but maybe not. Just be open and go with the flow, see opportunity, and just be open to experience and feel. That's it.
Right. Now, thank you for sharing that, and I think those are some very ambitious and very unique opportunities. I think we can all it's actually doable, and so thank you for sharing those. And so as we close out, I want to first thank Chantelle for joining us today from Rotterdam and really sharing more about what she's doing there with in music, driving sickle cell awareness, and just her impact on the wider community across the Netherlands and Rotterdam and Amsterdam. So, Chantelle, thank you for joining us today and just sharing your story and just sharing some of the wisdom that you have that I think will allow us to continue to be better advocates and allies for sickle cell, but then also helping us understand the music industry and how you're driving that there in the community. So thank you for joining today for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks again for having me.
And so as we close out, I hope the audience, I hope you enjoy this episode. There's a lot of nuggets here that we can learn from and how we can support sickle cell, how we can come together more as an international community, particularly for Black and Brown people. So as you listen in, I hope you enjoy the episode. And Chantelle, once again, thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.